Hello again, YouTube. Lovell is prior enlisted Marine history buff and overall just somebody who does a lot of research. And this one, I would be remiss if I did not first start off with a little bit of an announcement. I've actually got to cut back on my videos a little bit simply because of the fact that I have started doing DoorDash. It has made it so that way it's consumed a lot of my time. So I'm actually able to get money that way. It's a little bit of work that I'm able to do for myself. My eyes are finally better enough that I can drive, although my hands and feet are still an issue to the point of where I have to be really careful about what I'm doing, of course, and it's sometimes a little interesting to just put on my seatbelt. But I can actually do the job, and actually I'm doing it well. I currently have a 5 out of 5 rating, and it's like I have yet to take over 100 deliveries, but it has consumed a good chunk of my time. So, with that being said, it's just going to be an Ask Why video, and this is going to be me asking why does the politicians use hyperbole so much, and what do I mean by hyperbole? Of those of you who are not familiar with the definition, exaggeration, or blow it out of proportion. And in this particular case, it's surrounding the recent leak of the Supreme Court of the Roe v. Wade decision, which in itself was actually not was actually not in itself was in itself unprecedented because the court has never leaked up to this point. It's over 200 years old, and they leaked now. And it's partially because, I'm not even going to get into why I think that is. Honestly, I just think it's just bringing politics to the court when the court should be completely out of politics altogether. That's always been the point of the court. And but one of the politicians actually responded by saying that it was unprecedented to turn over that much legal precedence so easily. And my first thought was, well, then why aren't we still enforcing Dred Scott? Oh, that was a court case that was a dark mark on the legal system. The Dred Scott case actually ruled that a black man, whether free or slave, this was before the war between the states, could not be a citizen and therefore could not sue for his freedom. And at the strike of a gavel made it so that way all the people that are enslaved were basically stuck. They had to be released by the slave owner, which did happen, but not very often. So when I heard about that, I'm like, okay, why are we not reinforcing Dred Scott there still? If we've never overturned such legal precedent before. It's unprecedented that we turned over such legal precedent before. We had a whole constitutional amendment overturn it. We called it the 14th Amendment. It was actually what automatically granted them the citizenship because they were born in the States. And we fought a whole war to overturn Dred Scott as well. We've done a lot crazier over this. Now, as far as that goes, I'm going to go ahead and just point out that, hey, when it comes down to it, I myself am very much pro-life because I'm honestly going to ask another bonus question today. Why are we wasting the most valuable resource known to man, the human mind? And that one is quite simply going to be, hey, we're going to be, every single one of our problems have been solved by somebody who has a sharp mind. And they've come from all walks of life, all sorts of backgrounds. Andrew Carnegie is the reason that New York was built up as well as it was, and he didn't have two pennies to rub together when his parents immigrated from Ireland. Thomas Edison, if he had not invented the light bulb, had not invented the phonographic record, would have been a no-name telegraph operator. As like these things had actually, and Henry Ford what made it so that way your average American could own a car when it used to be a rich boy toy. And it is the human mind, it is the human entrepreneurship, and I've cited all of those from the Industrial Revolution because, while yes, that time was not perfect, no time is. It is still one of those times where our economy has grown the fastest, and we have yet to repeat those results. So, it was their minds. They were once wee babies. They were once what the left would define as a fetus. And they actually had to grow up, become adults, and they had ideas, and they made themselves what was effectively their own personal little empire. It was like Henry Ford, his greatest claim to fame was a bachelor's degree in engineering up to that point. Thomas Edison, I'm not sure what his education was. He just happened to have a lot of really bright ideas, and he happened to know how to get a good team together. So as a result, he ended up owning a lot of good patents, and his company still exists. We call it General Electric. That's what happened when J.P. Morgan actually bought it from him, and did effectively what Elon Musk did today with Twitter. He did a hostile takeover of General Electric, and well, back then it was Edison Electric, and he molded it as he saw fit. And at the same time, it's like when it came down to it, what had happened was, in the case of Andrew Carnegie, while he was working, he made some rather wise investments while he was working for very little at the time, and that allowed him to get his first steel mill. All the entire city of Pittsburgh owes its existence to Carnegie. And so, okay. So my comment about that is in most of the cases surrounding abortion, you want a choice, fine. Have it 9 months before you have a due date. And I was like, in most of the cases of abortion, the choice is made when there was actual consent between two adults. It was completely legal. Two consenting adults, and if you just happen to make a bad decision, honestly, I'd say that's on you. You gotta live with the repercussions of it. And I was like, and somebody like me, if I would happen to find somebody, it's like I do have an ex-wife, and had I actually made a child with her, I'd still try to be the best father I could be. It is the only honorable thing to do in such a circumstance, is to be a father. And I was like, for me, who takes honor very seriously, there is no other choice. Be the best father I know that I can be, and try to raise that child to be a good, productive member of society, to where they themselves can make a heck of a mark on history. If I can't be like Thomas Edison myself, or Nikola Tesla, or Henry Ford, or Andrew Carnegie, or any of these guys that are throughout history that have incredible amounts of success, you know what? I certainly would want my child to be that successful. I would be proud to be a father of such a child. Oh, so the choice, you want a choice, you made it. In most circumstances, I can actually still understand this when it comes down to when it comes down to rape and incest. Okay, the choice might have been taken away from you at that or was almost certainly taken away from you at that point. I can understand that. I could also understand if you're an extremely high risk pregnancy going on here and it might risk your life to attempt to carry the child to term. And especially if it is a case of where it risks both life of child and mother to carry child to term, I could understand that as well because it simply becomes a case of numbers. You're going to lose both if you don't act. And so the action must be at that point to save one, sacrifice one to save the other. It's cold. It's logic. I hate using that logic from time to time, but it's good. But it's good, solid logic, and it is the only thing that really makes sense. So, and that accounts for a very, very small amount of abortions that are conducted in the country, something to the effect of less than 1%. Yeah, it's like I could be wrong about the exact percentage, but it's definitely in the minority that falls under those circumstances. Most of the time, it's cases of people using abortion as after effect contraception, which I definitely have a problem with that. Now, with that being said, we can now look at the decision of Roe v. Wade being overturned. Well, that doesn't matter much if you happen to live in a state like New York, California, New Jersey, because they'll still have basically abortion whenever you want it. Even what I would actually call murder, for sure. There's no argument about that because the child would have been born. Then they can decide whether or not to post-birth abort the child. No bueno. It's like, no, 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 no. But it might make a bit of more of a difference if you're, say, in Texas or Oklahoma or, say, or down in Georgia or Mississippi, Louisiana, somewhere in those states, Tennessee, that might make a bit more of a difference for you there. And it was like, those states, I have no doubt, probably would vote to do an outright ban unless the circumstances that I just listed off, rape, incest, medical emergency, are among the ones that are listed. It would have to be under those circumstances. And I certainly have an issue, and it also might. I'm not sure what it would do for the taxpayer-funded portion. It's like Planned Parenthood for a long time has actually been getting taxpayer funding. I also have an issue with that. I don't like the idea that somebody like me who's so disagreeable to abortion, and some people are even more disagreeable than myself, but I honestly think this is reasonable. And my reasoning behind it is logical. But there's some people that are even more pro-life than myself. That unless it's a medical emergency, that's it. Game over. You're even if it's rape or incest. Yeah, it's like some people are like that. We could have that discussion as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it's like I myself. There's where my lines are, and I've stated my reason why. It is the most valuable resource we've got. It's like if we're going to look at fixing things that are problems that we ourselves, our generation, cannot solve. I'm a millennial. So the Gen Z inherits some of the problems that we have that we are not smart enough, don't have the right talent to fix. Gen Z then gets a crack at it. And then the generation after that. And then the generation after that. And by then, this body will certainly have expired, and I will not know a single one of them. But with abortion being outlawed, there will be more of them. They will have a deeper bench, and they'll have more talent to pull from, and therefore it'll be more likely that they will be able to solve those problems that we cannot solve. One of which would be an engineering marvel. Maybe one of them might be able to figure out how to make a perpetual motion machine that could actually solve all of our energy woes from now until the end of time. That would be lovely. Or they could actually, it's like one of my videos, I've gotten a lot of comments about Hyperloop not being practical. One of them might be able to figure out how to make Hyperloop or some technology based on Hyperloop actually applicable to their generation. It might not be that, or it's like one of the people who's born today might be able to actually make it so that way Elon Musk SpaceX can get to Mars. We just don't know yet, because a lot of them haven't had a chance. So, I personally would love to see more of that talent, as like we might have another Cyrus McCormick waiting in the wings. And for those of you who are not from Rockbridge County, you might not even know the name. Cyrus McCormick saw that wheat was being wasted during harvest season because sometimes the weather would get in the way and make it so that way the wheat would rot before they could even harvest it. So he invented a machine that was horse-drawn at the time he called a reaper. And it is actually the technology that went into the reaper was actually the basis of what is now could be found in an international harvester. The very tines in the front are of a similar design, albeit much more advanced, than what the Reaper did, the original Reapers. And there happens to be a model of one of said Reaper over in Rafine, Virginia. You can go see it. It's on the McCormick Farm. I've actually made a video before about where I think that we ought to have a museum dedicated to man. So, because after all, everybody in the Midwest basically owes their livelihood to him. Not to mention, every one of us can eat because of him. You like having bread? You like having some of you like having beer? A lot of these things come from the fact that they're able to harvest these things. The international harvesters of today owe their origin to the Reaper. To that primitive little horse-drawn Reaper. And it was because Cyrus McCormick lived that actually allowed that to happen. That was one of those problems that was being faced at the time. They were facing what was going to become a thing where our resources were going to be depleted a little bit sooner. And then he came up with a Reaper and made it so that way we were able to expand the food supply by a lot. There might be another person waiting to be born that will be like Cyrus McCormick. There might be another Thomas Edison. There might be another Henry Ford or an Andrew Carnegie that's waiting to be born that otherwise wouldn't be because of abortion. And there have even been people who have survived abortion, grown up to be rather productive adults, where the abortion failed and the child was still carried to term. So, that was a little bit heavier than I'm used to going with some of my stuff. I managed to cover a lot of territory very quickly on this one. But feel free to send me what you think in the comments section below. Feel free to put your input in on this at any time. And again, as the hyperbole, there's been precedent for this before, but I decided to bring up that question first so that way I could get to the other heart of this matter. So I covered it very quickly and then I went off somewhere else. And if you guys have a problem with that, please let me know. I'll try and stay a little bit more on topic a little better this time. But I've been Lovell. You guys have been awesome. You have a good day now.